Rugby World Cup 2023, folks. Pool B, South Africa taking on Romania from Bordeaux this weekend. We're going to go through some squads, history, stats, predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. It's a tough ask for Romania. You have to feel for these guys. They played the number one side in the world, Ireland, got whacked by 82 points. I mean, they did score 8 of their own. But yeah, now they have to play the number 2 side in the world, South Africa. So it doesn't get any easier. Yeah, tough ask, but I mean, Tier 2 sides want more games against Tier 1 sides, and yeah, what can you say? You get to play 2 of the top sides in the world 2 weeks in a row. It's a chance for these guys to get some exposure and to see what rugby is like at this top level, but you get the feeling like they're in for a pretty tough day at the office. For South Africa, Jacques Nienaber mentioned, like, he's a little bit awkward in press conferences, like he basically wanted to say that they don't want to take Romania lightly, kind of alluding to the fact that he didn't want to see what happened to France against Uruguay happen to South Africa in this game. But he didn't want to do so pointing a finger at France for kind of underestimating Uruguay. But by doing so, he kind of pointed the finger at France for underestimating Uruguay. But hey, what can you say? Sometimes when you're speaking in front of cameras, your words can get a bit tangled. This is my second take of this video because I couldn't remember Joseph Dweba's name. The reason I wanted to talk about Joseph Dweba is because the Springboks have lost Malcolm Marx. Malcolm Marx is out of the Rugby World Cup, which is tragic news, just as bad as France losing Romain Ntamack. I think as Malcolm Marx losing, be out of the Springbok squad. That's brutal. One of the best players in the world. Genuinely, I think that hurts South Africa's chances. I don't know how much by, like a couple percent, but certainly South Africa look a better team when Malcolm Marx is in the squad. That's just a fact of life. He's insanely good. I mean, Bongi is a great replacement to have, and he's captain of the side this week. And then Deon Fourie is your backup hooker who was kind of brought into the squad as that versatile loose forward and hooker replacement, but they can't really get by. I mean, Jacques never kind of mentioned it, I think, just with 2 hookers in the squad. I mean, he did mention that Van Staden is the next potential hooker, but I don't think he's played a game of professional rugby at hooker in his life. So to go into a World Cup as the next hooker off the ranks would seem insane. Marx was apparently injured in some freak accident at training. But yeah, he did talk up the versatility of players, and that's why the likes of a Deon Fourie got into the squad ahead of Joseph Dweba, is because he can fill more than one position. And speaking of filling more than one position, they've picked all 4 halfbacks, scrum halves. Like, they did 7-1 split the other week against the All Blacks, and now it's 4 halfbacks in the same team. Is there going to be a big outrage with commentators saying, oh, those bloody Springboks, they shouldn't be allowed to pick 4 halfbacks in the same team? I don't think so. I love it when we see this kind of left field stuff. The fact that they've picked these versatile guys who can fill in more than one position is, I don't know, it's cool. Shows a bit of extra outside the box thinking. But the squad is Nche, Mbonambi, and Koch. That's the front row. So Mbonambi and Nche get a start after being on the bench last week, and then Koch gets his first game of this World Cup. Kleyn and Orie come in the second row, likewise their first games. They'll be looking to put a marker down, especially with Eben going off early in that last game. It's a good game for Jean Kleyn to put a marker down, even though he had a bit of a niggle of his own just a couple of weeks ago. Van Staden, Smith, and Vermeulen, that's the back row. So it's all changed, man. The entire forward pack has changed from the team last week. So you can see why Coach Nienaber was a little bit concerned about maybe that cohesion not being there, and that they want to kind of, hit the ground running and not see a repeat of what happened with France Uruguay happen to the Boks. Now, the 4 halfbacks, you got Cobus Reinach at 9. Willemse shifts to 10 from fullback, which is kind of his other position. You got Esterhuizen and Moodie in the midfield, which is cracking. That's fantastic. I mean, Esterhuizen has been busting tackles for fun, and Moodie with his gas, and he just seems to have like a real good read on the game, being at the right place at the right time with his skills and his gas, plus his height. Incredible player. Only young guy, but man, that's a very exciting midfield. Then the other part of your 4 halfbacks, you got Grant Williams, speaking of gas, on the right wing, and then the 2 other halfbacks on the bench, Jaden Hendrickson at 21 and Faf de Klerk at 22, I guess covering more 10 than 9 for this game. Willie Roux is also there at fullback, who will likely help Damian Willemse pull the strings as that kind of other playmaking option. So, yeah, man, very different but very exciting looking Springboks side. Fourie, as I mentioned, Kitshoff and Nyakane are your front row replacements. Snyman is still there. Visa drops to the bench with him and Vermeulen swapping places. And then Hendricks of Fuff and Creel, the back replacements. So, yeah, it is a lot of kind of tinkering around. I mean, realistically, South Africa are going to blow Romania out of the park. I hope Romania can put up a better fight than they did against Ireland. The fact that they've faced Ireland and maybe now a little bit more aware of what kind of is in store for them against a team like South Africa. Yeah, we'll see if they're able to kind of lift a bit their game. But remember, South Africa plays a bit different to Ireland. Ireland plays super high tempo, really quick ruck ball and whatnot, whereas South Africa is a bit more direct and a lot, I don't say a lot more, but they got a big old power game, don't they? So, yeah, it's going to be tasty either way. The Romanians have made a few changes. They've brought up one of their reserve locks, that's Marius Efimucic, from the bench to the starting team. Gorin comes in at 6. Trika is still there as your number 8. He made 16 out of 20 tackles against Ireland, so one of the kind of bright stars, and it was a pretty tough day at the office. Rupanu is still there at 9. Remember, he was the try scorer last week. Valvasta is still there at 10. You need to watch that guy, man, because he had 148 meters and 9 defenders beaten in the game against Ireland. For context, the team had 11 defenders beaten and 312 meters. So the dude offensively was by far Romania's brightest star. They have shifted Tomani to 13, Manamua to the right wing, and then Taylor Gontiniak is in at 12. And then there's a bunch of changes on the bench as well. Sadly, the Romanian side is not one that I'm that familiar with, but as I said, I just hope that they can put in a better shift that they did against Ireland, but they've gone for a 6-2 split. Whether that'll help up against the big Bok pack, kind of remains to be seen, eh? They have played once before. It was in 1995, and it was only 21-8. Adrian Richter got a couple of tries in that game. The rest of the points for the Boks coming from the boot. 8 points to Romania in that one. So that's the same amount they scored against Ireland the other day. Can they get 8 points again against the Springboks? We'll see. One would think the Springboks are going to run up more than the 21 they did in 1995. The game has changed a lot since then. South Africa's, at that point, didn't have any World Cups. They've now got 3. And rugby in Romania, I guess with the end of the amateur era, seems to have taken a bit of a turn. I mean, Canada's the same, so there's a few countries who've kind of struggled in the professional area and professional era, and Romania seems to be one of them, sadly. What else have we got? Stats-wise, interestingly, for South Africa, every game except that New Zealand game away where they lost, they've been managing over 4 meters a carry, which just highlights the kind of directness of their play. Like, they're a team which is doing really well to get themselves over the advantage line. And interestingly, the start of the second half is South Africa's best quarter by a mile. If I'm not mistaken, they've only conceded 3 points this year in that kind of start of the second half before the kind of hour mark, which is kind of crazy given the amount of games they've played. South Africa beat Scotland 18-3 last week. Romania lost 82-8. So, yeah, big time differences in the squads. What can we say? It's at Bordeaux. Matthew Reynal is the ref. It's an afternoon game over there in France. It's a 1 a.m. game here in New Zealand, and I'm still battling a bit of a cold, so I'm probably going to sleep through this one and watch it delayed, much delayed. But yeah, I certainly still be watching it. I think Fiji and Australia's on after this one, and then Japan and England. So I'll probably watch this one last out of the 3 games. So if the review video is a bit late, do forgive me. But I think the scoreline is going to be the main talking point. And fingers crossed, no cards, no injuries. Predictions-wise, South Africa by 67, say the bookies, and 58 says the rugby forecast algorithm. You guys let us know your thoughts. How do you reckon this one is going to go? And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.